history book mentions me, I will lay
Hey
down
guys,
my life.
welcome back to History Rewritten. I'm Rihanna.
And I'm Pachia. And today's episode is called What the Textbooks Didn't Teach You About the Civil Rights Movement. Today, we are talking about the Civil Rights Movement, and this was from the 1950s to the 1970s.
We're pretty much just going to be focusing on how advocates use different strategies periodically to fight racial discrimination. The movement really has changed a lot.
Oh my gosh, it really has.
Peaceful, nonviolent protests were aimed to achieve social and legal change through peaceful resistance and moral swaying. While on the other hand, more forceful, aggressive, militant approaches focused on self-defense, self-identity, and directly challenging systemic oppression. Both strategies played a pivotal role in the continued fight for equal rights.
And after the Civil War, there was a small time of Reconstruction from 1865 to 1877. This was when the United States tried to rebuild the South and help African Americans gain rights to be citizens and voting rights. And a lot of black men even got elected to office. But of course, many white Southerners did not like this at all and wanted to keep the old racial hierarchy.
Oh my gosh, people were crazy back then.
Right. And the Compromise of 1877 ended the time of Reconstruction and dragged federal troops out of the South. And once that happened, Southern leaders very quickly took away black rights. Jim Crow laws made segregation legal in buses, schools, restaurants, and churches. There were even voting laws like literacy tests and poll taxes that made it harder for black men to vote. Groups like the KKK used violence and murder to maintain control in the racial hierarchy. And unfair systems like sharecropping kept many black families impoverished. This time period basically set up nearly a century's worth of discrimination and injustice. It also helped to shape the world that soon became what the civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X were left with, which influenced on how they fought for justice.
Right. And even before the civil rights movement even started, black people were already fighting for their rights. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, W.E.B. Du Bois, who is the man that helped start the NAACP in 1909, believed education and political involvement were key for equality. While on the other hand, Booker T. Washington focused on vocational training and economic progress, he really thought that black Americans could gain respect through hard work. Ida B. Wells used journalism to combat racial violence. Her anti-lynching reports exposed harsh realities and forced change. During this time, activists and advocates formed organizations like the NAACP. They wrote essays, they gave speeches, and they even lobbied Congress to pass anti-lynching laws. In the 1920s and 1930s, the Harlem Renaissance turned activism into art. Artists like Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, and Claude McKay celebrated black culture through poetry, interesting stories, and lively music. Their work promoted racial pride, creativity, and self-expression while also challenging many stereotypes. During the 1930s and 1940s, activism shifted more toward legal battles and community organizing. Thurgood Marshall, leading the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, took on school segregation in cases like Missouri, X-Rail, Gaines v. Canada. Local Voices worked on voter registration drives and community meetings. By World War II, African Americans linked their fight for equality to the war effort with campaigns like Double V Campaign. Activists like A. Philip Randolph pushed FDR to issue Executive Order 8802, which banned discrimination in defense jobs. All of these efforts helped to set the stage for the civil rights movement that came later on.
And when it comes to the civil rights movement, there were a couple different strategies used, and the first one we will cover is nonviolent movement.
Can you explain that to me a little, Pachia?
Of course. So the nonviolent movement focused more on peaceful and subtle ways to combat racism. and segregation. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is the most famous leader that most people think of, and his idea of nonviolent resistance was influenced by Gandhi and based on Christian principles of love and courage. He organized big peaceful protests, and he led the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and gave the famous I Have a Dream speech. And although it was peaceful, it was still very dangerous. Protesters were beaten, arrested, and threatened. Progress was slow, and segregation didn't just disappear. Rosa Parks is a big example when she refused to give up her seat on the bus. And this all started the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955 to 1956. The Black community walked and carpooled for over a year, which eventually forced the Supreme Court to say bus segregation was unconstitutional. And nonviolent activism also included sit-ins, freedom rides, and voter registration drives led by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, also known as SNCC. These protests pressured the government to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And this made a lasting change towards equality.
Oh my gosh. The second movement that we'll talk about is the militant, more forceful movement, the Black nationalist movement, if you will. By the mid to late 1960s, some African Americans felt like peaceful protests really wasn't enough. This led to militant activism and Black nationalist movements, which mainly focused on self-defense, self-empowerment, and building strong Black communities. Leaders like Stokely Carmichael promoted Black power, calling for racial pride, political control, and economic independence. Even the SNCC started using more forceful strategies because progress was just way too slow, and violence against Black people was still going on. The Black Panther Party started in 1966 by Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. It became one of the most popular groups. They believed it armed self-defense against police brutality and also ran community programs like free breakfast programs,
Yum.
health clinics, and schools. The Panthers wanted Black communities to feel strong, proud, and safe while still challenging unfair legal systems. This shows that the civil rights movement really wasn't just solved one way. Nonviolent protest was still important, but militant activism highlighted the desperate need for a direct action and self-determination to push for equal rights for all.
Yes. And now to sum up everything we've talked about in today's episode. Both the nonviolent and militant approaches were very crucial to the civil rights movement. Peaceful protests led to major legal and social changes, while militant activism truly emphasized urgency, economic justice, and pride in Black identity. And modern things today, from Black Lives Matter to voter rights campaigns, carry on this legacy by combining organization, courage, and assertive action. Both strategies mattered because they offered different ways to fight oppression. The civil rights movement reminds us all that real progress actually takes multiple approaches, persistence, and lots of bravery.
Wow. I feel like we forget how much bravery it takes to just show up, honestly.
Exactly. And the civil rights movement reminds us all that everyone's roles count, even if it's small at first.
Yeah, like organizing marches, sharing info, or just refusing to stay silent. That's all that really matters.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode of History Rewritten with Rihanna
And Pachia.
Bye, guys.